Hey, what's going on, everyone? Figured I'd give everyone an update of the Friday Reads video since it's been a little while, but been able to hire some people at the library, so it's not just me working there, so that's really cool. I think things are going quite well, so I think I'll be able to get more in the rhythm of doing some more videos and whatnot, but I got 2 books that I recently finished, 2 I'm in the middle of, and 2 that I'll probably be getting to next. So let's just go ahead and get started. So I did finish Lone Wolf, Walking the Line Between Civilization and Wildness by Adam Weymouth. And Crown was kind enough to send me this title. And I've read his first work, which was Kings of the Yukon, which was kind of him following the salmon trail out in northwestern Canada through the rivers and stuff, and all the different peoples and cultures, and kind of like ecological roadblocks are kind of getting in the way. This one is all about following in the footsteps of a wild wolf in Eastern Europe named Slouch, I believe it is. I'm not even 100% sure if I'm quite pronouncing it super correctly, but it was very cool. He kind of, since Slouch had a radio collar on every couple of hours, it would ping, so people were able to, the scientists were able to follow like kind of in his footsteps and kind of keep tabs on him and everything. But this book is all about kind of the rebounding of wild wolves in Europe, and also kind of people's, concerns for the most part, kind of their thoughts and feelings on the matter, how they interact with wolves, how different governments are responding to it, how different kind of cultures are responding to it as well, and that sort of thing. So in one sense, it's like a travel log where he's going through like Slovenia, Austria, Italy, for example, kind of like I said, following in his footsteps. You're learning a little bit about the landscape, the different kind of small town cultures that are going on and everything. But one of the big parallels of the book is kind of rural populations, fear of the wolf, the return of the wolf. And it's interesting because in a lot of ways they're people of the land and stuff, and I kind of get that, being like in a super rural place myself. But what was interesting is they were always saying things like along the lines of, it's actually really good that wolves are coming back and stuff, just not here. But if every single place says that, then not here, where does that leave it? But another parallel really was kind of the wolf being a stand-in for Eastern immigration in different parts of Europe, and kind of the fears there. Why are people afraid of different cultures like coming into Europe and stuff? And it's not 100% every single person's against it, but you definitely gotta get to feel a lot of those kind of smaller population areas are definitely like you'd think they're actually on the brunt end of it, but they're really not when he breaks down like the statistics and stuff, kind of like what's going on and whatnot. But I thought it was like, I really liked it. I like the blend, like I said, of the kind of the naturey kind of ecological aspects with the travelogue, with the kind of contemporary kind of social critique going on. I thought it was really well done. Next up is actually an audiobook that I buddy read with Angie that I met over on the Discord group, and it was 1217, The Battles That Saved England by Catherine Hanley. And I loved her book on Matilda, which was I read that a couple years ago, and that was like, I think, the sleeper hit of medieval or quarter 2 of Historathon for the medieval era. A lot of people ended up reading that one. But this book is kind of basically just a summary of like the second half of the First Barons' War. So you kind of lead up with kind of a lot of the failings of King John in 1215, which there was quite a few. Poor King John. I don't think he really didn't have like anything really going for him. But essentially the barons kind of sort of let in Prince Louis over from France. But then when King John dies, it's kind of like awkward, going, well, I guess we could have like a kind of English king. We don't really need you anyways now. And then, you have kind of the war, where, like I said, Henry III is what, like 13 or 5? No, he's not even a teenager. He's like, anyways, he's a little kid. And then you got like Prince Louis on the other side. who who proclaims himself as King of England, and the barons are like, I don't know we don't know if we like really like this now. And you kind of have like William Marshall sort of leading, the English side and stuff. But you get a lot of like really interesting characters up until the Battle of Sandwich in 1217, which was actually like a pivotal naval battle of the medieval period, which is pretty interesting because that doesn't happen very, very often. But my big takeaway is, there needs to be, if there's not, I'm going to have to look, if there's not a biography of Eustace of the Monk, you should look him up, because he's got a crazy story, being basically a French pirate during this time. And you also might have like some kind of, I don't know, like pseudo origins of like Robin Hood during this time period as well. So all kinds of kind of interesting stuff. So I'm glad I didn't read a whole lot of medieval history books this year for whatever reason. So if you got any good medieval history books, let me know down below. And now for some books that I'm just about done both of these. First up we have There Is No Place for Us, Working and Homeless in America by Brian Goldstone. And I kind of wanted to read this just because I've worked, like I said, I've said in probably a bunch of other videos at this point, but when I was a social worker, I worked with plenty of people that were working and homeless, whether that meant like just kind of couch surfing between like friends' houses and stuff, or living out of like vehicles and everything. So it is a book I definitely wanted to read, and it kind of this book is a journalistic look, investigation of like, I think it was 5 different families, all from Atlanta, and kind of all the different things, not only that put them into kind of like different categories of homelessness, which there are different categories, because for example, for like school systems and stuff, if you're living in an extended stay or out of your car or whatever, that's considered homeless. But if you're like bouncing around, couch surfing, or living in an extended stay motel, which those places are quite predatory, as you will no doubt learn about in this book, for like HUD and like most like municipal and like state and like federal government type stuff, they don't count that as like being literally homeless, and that's how they're able to often keep the numbers down when clearly it's really like not the case and stuff. So very depressing and that side of things. And then you'll also learn about all the different barriers and roadblocks and things getting in people's way that kind of keep them in those predicaments. Like, for example, like I said, the predatory kind of stuff you're dealing with there with like extended stays and different kind of like loan type stuff with credit scores, and even just like families trying to get into certain shelters. For example, one of the families had a son that was, I think it was like over 13, and therefore if they wanted to stay at that shelter, they'd have to be split up and stuff. And it's totally whack. The whole system is just totally broken. The only thing, like, so far I haven't, unless it's like going to be right at the end, there's been like no light at the end of the tunnel. Like, it's just like, this is like grimdark for like fantasy people, but for like modern day journalism, there's like nothing going well for like pretty much anyone out of any of this stuff here. And I'm hoping maybe like the last chapter or two has some like kind of just like, I guess, so it's like social critique on like what the other things might be able to be done to kind of help these situations out and stuff. Because yeah, it is pretty rough stuff. So brace yourself if you decide to read that. On a slightly more positive note, I did find this hidden gem, this gem of a book and gem of an author at a used bookstore about a month ago. This one's The Sylvan Path, A Journey Through America's Forest by Gary Ferguson. And this is fantastic. He's got about a dozen books. And I'm going to call this, it's kind of like a blend. If you took like Desert Solitaire, but made it more, definitely much more like chronological and linear, but with like sort of like the tone of like Aldo Leopold a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. But we're dealing with like forests and stuff in this one, so that's really cool. Maine is kind of like in the first 50 or 60 pages. He's kind of taking like a giant tour of like kind of the Great North Woods and stuff. But it's just really interesting. He just kind of rambles along the way and stops at a couple different interesting places and kind of gives his thoughts and his like little quasi like interviews with different locals and stuff, and like why they think things are important where they are and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, it's just really, really well written, and I don't know, I've been just thoroughly enjoying it. So I'm definitely going to read his like probably his most popular work, which I guess is called Hawk's Rest. I'm definitely probably going to read that hopefully before the end of the year as well. So now going forward, I've been doing pretty bad, and by pretty bad I mean I've only read one classic so far this year, and it was only like 120 or 150 pages, which was Call of the Wild by Jack London. So I kind of wanted to read one a month, and that's just excuse me, not happening at all. So I did pick myself up a used copy here of Emile Zola's The Kill, which is the second book in his the Rougon-Macquart cycle. I read The Fortune of the Rougon last year, and this is like a 20-book series of kind of this giant extended family during their life and times during the Second French Empire, which would be like 1851 to 1870, if I remember off the top of my head. And just kind of all different aspects, like rich life, poor life, you know, peasant world and the cities and stuff. I'm not sure exactly what this one is going to be about. The first one I read is all about kind of the lead up of kind of the ill-gotten gains of one side of the family during the kind of coup where Napoleon III sort of took over. And then another side of things was just two young lovers. I got kind of caught up and lost in the times. So I'll just read the back here for you. So The Kill is the second volume of Zola's great cycle of 20 novels, Les Rougon-Macquart, and the first to establish Paris, the capital of modernity, as the center of Zola's narrative world. Conceived as a representation of the uncontrollable appetites unleashed by the Second Empire and the transformation of the city by Baron Haussmann, the novel combines into a single powerful vision the twin themes of lust for money and lust for pleasure. The all-pervading promiscuity of the new Paris is reflected in the dissolute and frenetic lives of an unscrupulous property speculator, Saccard, and his neurotic wife, Renée, and her dandified lover, Saccard's son, Maxime. So, it just sounds, like I said, sounds a little bit wild, sounds a little bit decadent. I'm probably going to enjoy it. I just love Emile, like Zola's style, everything like that. So, be a lot of fun, hopefully. And then lastly, Princeton University Press was kind enough to send me this book here. We got The Lives of Frogs, A Natural History. Oh, you want to join for the nature title, Sophia? What did I say? Natural History by Jim Labisko and Richard Griffiths. And just look how lovely that cover is right there. So I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 other books in this series, so I'm only missing, I think, 3 or 4. But this year, Frogs came out, and Snakes and Bats, I think, came out earlier in the year. But let me just like see if I can hold this up a little bit. We can flip through. Like, this series is just absolutely awesome. It's usually either a 2 or 4 page spread on a different topic based on like whatever animal or taxa is in question, and then most chapters end with like a section that's just one giant photo of a specific species, and just kind of a little species profile, kind of just highlighting what's interesting or cool or unique or special or anything about that. So, you know, you get all kinds of really cool stuff. And then, like I said, too, you got different illustrations, photos, diagrams and stuff of like anatomy or life cycles or, I don't know, ecology, anything like that. So, all kinds of cool stuff. Love it. Lots of really amazing information. Super high quality. They're probably it's definitely my favorite, like, nature series kind of books. Let's see. I got bees, beetles, butterflies, fungi, lichen, moth, octopuses, spiders, and now frogs. And I think there's, sharks, viruses. Sharks, viruses, the bats and snakes. And there might be, like, seaweeds, I think, too. Yeah. So yeah, all kinds of different stuff, and I hope to keep that series going for like ever and ever and ever. And they look really nice on the shelf too, so that doesn't hurt anything either. So let me know what you're reading this weekend, and let me know if you like these kind of just chill Friday read style videos. And whatever you decide to read, always remember, read victoriously.